you don't realize that you need to see yourself represented to understand yourself and learn how to love yourself. It's really helpful. You do not have to ascribe to what I choose in my life, who I am. You don't have to like it. But the demand is for the respect for my humanity, just as I respect yours. The best thing that I know how to do is live by example. I try to live by example, even right now. My name is Billy Porter, and I am a multi-hyphenated artist, a bon vivant, if you will. No, really, I sing, I act, I dance, I write, I produce, I direct, I do all of the things. I'm an activist. Yeah, that's me.
That is you, and of course, if we hit on each one of those points, we would be here for days. But I actually want to ask you about art, which encompasses most of those hyphenates.
Mm-hmm.
You said art saved your life.
Yes. You know, I had a very difficult childhood. There was a lot of trauma there. There was also a lot of love there. It's a yes and. And I found out and realized early on that I was given this gift of a singing voice. You know, I started singing in church, and I could feel the transformation of the adults in the room when my little 5-year-old self would open up my mouth to sing. And, you know, of course, I didn't understand the power of it at 5. But fast forward to 5 years later, and I was in the 5th grade, and I was one of those, you know, sissy boys that was bullied every day, consistently, incessantly. And I signed up for the talent show, and I won. And the bullying stopped. And it was in that space where I realized that there was a power in this voice for me, something that could possibly transform my life, you know, something that could possibly give me a space to belong.
I've talked to a lot of people and read a good bit about people, and particularly in the Black community, whose life has centered around the church.
Mm-hmm. The church can be really confusing. When it came to the singing, when it came to that part of my ministry, and I do say ministry, I was fully embraced. The church was dangerous for me in the sense of my queerness was unacceptable. My gayness, if you will, was unacceptable. The Bible allegedly says that, you know, it's an abomination. And I had to extract myself from that space early. I was about 16 when I left organized religion. And through the years, I have remained very spiritual. You know, I took the good stuff from the church, from religion, and let the bad stuff go.
Did you come to this on your own at 16, or did you have people who mentored or helped you in some way?
No, I came to it on my own, because I wasn't really in an environment where there were mentors for me in that way. This is the 70s and 80s.
You have an extraordinary relationship now with your mother, but was there a moment of the inability to accept the rest of you that came from her, that came from family?
She had a rough time, came out to her when I was 16. And my joke is I had to come out to her 3 times over a 10-year period. She couldn't understand it couldn't register. She couldn't process it. It wasn't her world. We went back and forth for years, and it wasn't a quick evolution. The love never stopped. I was not kicked out of my house. I wasn't disowned or any of those kinds of things. As a disabled person, born in 1945, she also experienced being held down, being bound, being chained by other people's misunderstanding of her diagnosis, of other people's fears surrounding what she could or could not do.
What was her diagnosis?
It was never diagnosed. We could talk about this all the time. It's medical malpractice. My grandmother was ready to have her. There was no doctor. They gave her medicine to hold the baby back. The doctor came, forced her out, pinched a nerve, degenerative her whole life. Her mind, however, was always fine. And that was her plea. My mind is fine. My physical body is betraying me, but my mind is fine. Please respect me for that.
Including your mother, you had people in your corner. You had people who believed in you even when you didn't believe in yourself. Were you able to receive that, or was that so hard?
I had angels in my life who lifted me up, held space for me, took care of me. Lenore Nimitz and Patty Hughes Rustlander were like, no, you're going to college and you're going to Carnegie Mellon University. And I was like, that school down the street? They're like, yeah, top 5 drama school in the world. You're going there. I moved to New York City December 27th, 1990, to be in the original cast of Miss Saigon. The AIDS crisis, I lived it in New York. Within a year, we had lost like 3 or 4 people. What I'm grateful for is that at the time that I moved to New York City, it was sort of the beginning of Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS. And of course, the Actors Fund has been around for over 150 years at this point. And those organizations coalesced to help teach an entire generation how to activate. So I was in the middle of understanding how to be present and how to, as we're saying right now, do something. And then in 2007, which, up until this year when I lost my mother, was probably the most challenging year of my life. I had already been in a sort of valley period with working. I wasn't working in the way that I wanted to. February of 2007, I was diagnosed with hereditary type 2 diabetes. By March, I was signing bankruptcy papers. And by June, I was diagnosed HIV positive. And I truly have to say that I didn't know if I was going to make it. I really just didn't. I had a lot of self-doubt. I had a lot of self-hate. I had a lot of, I became the statistic that everybody, all the haters said I would be. And I just kept going. I just tried to put one foot in front of the other daily. One thing a day. What can I do? What is the goal and what can I do? My whole life has been about other people. This was the universe saying, God, whatever you want to call it, take care of you. Where are you? What is your mental health? Because I can't be of use to anything or anybody if I'm not okay. And I was really working on trying to expand my art in search of my own voice. As a performer, I was considered a clown. I was being hired to be a clown, to stop your boring show, because I can come and blow the roof off the joint, but there's no character, there's no humanity, there's no human being. I'm just a clown. And so I had to make the decision to stop accepting that kind of work. And like I said earlier, take the road less traveled. So here I am now starting to ask myself, well, what is my classic? What do I as a Black gay man in this world need to say? I have a story that's important. What is that? Now, first 10 years of my career, I worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. So I didn't think the transition was going to take over a decade. I didn't think it was going to lead me to bankruptcy. I didn't think it was, and it's a yes, and I'm so grateful that I did it, because when it did come back around for me, it has been nothing but on my own terms. My re-entrance to the commercial theater space in New York was with my favorite play, Tony Kushner's Angels in America. So Tony knew me, but he didn't know, none of these people knew me as an actor. They knew me as an entertainer. They knew me as fabulous, right? So when it came time for this revival, I ran into Tony at one of the Mucky Muck dinners and I said, I want to play Belize, just letting you know. And this is a year before. So you fast forward to a year later and nobody would see me. Couldn't get an audition. The gatekeepers, as always, had already decided who I was and what I could do. And so finally, after like 2 weeks, he says, have you gotten your audition for Angels yet? And I was like, no. And he said, that's strange. I'll get on that. And literally, it was like either that night or the next day, I got a call from my agent. They want to see you tomorrow, and and they want you to do I think it was 4 scenes. It was either 2 or 4 scenes. And yeah, I told them you need more time. And stop. There's one role in the entire canon of anything that's ever existed on the planet that looks like me. That shit was written 25 years ago. It's my job to already know it. I have had this play committed to memory for 20 years. What scenes do they need? Don't you worry about me. This bitch is ready. I walked in, I spoke the first sentence, and I saw the whole room go. An hour later, I was in that room. They were giddy. It was like, well, try like this. And Tony was like, well, I want to see it like this. Michael's and I'm like, And at the end, Tony got up from the table with tears in his eyes and hugged me. And he said, I'm speechless. This is the voice. That was my re-entrance, because then Kinky Boots was announced sort of around that time. I was able to really create, I call her Miss Lola, really ground that character in a truth that I know the world had never seen before. A Black drag queen, performance artist, the heart of the play, the heart of it, not the clown, not the side clown, the lead. The lead. It's a different conversation. Moving into Pose and hearing that Ryan Murphy was submitting me for best lead actor in a drama series. I bucked that. I was like, I'm not the lead. I'm so used to being the side person, right? And he took me to lunch. And he said, you're the male lead of this show. How this piece is grounded is through you, your performance, and your character. And he said, I know how difficult it's been for you to convince people of your acting ability. And I'm here to tell you that you will never have to worry about that again. You are one of the finest actors of your generation, period. And you are a Black, gay, out, leading man. And it's time for the world to know what that is. You are the one, and it's time for you to sit on your throne.
You said something earlier about how you only have the capacity to give what you have. And in order to help other people, you have to take care of yourself, which is something you said, but something that I think it took you a while to understand. Is that fair?
And it's ever evolving. Self-care, mental health, all of these new sort of buzzwords and catchphrases, mindfulness, all of this stuff that's sort of the ooga booga stuff that had sort of moved into the mainstream. It's real. COVID equaled trauma therapy for me. Didn't even know I needed it. The mental health profession and the work that they've done over the years, and how the healing that you can get from those spaces. Ooh, it is so, I've just been transformed as a human being. And that's first for me. It wasn't always. I didn't know that it needed to be, but that's first. How am I showing up as a human being first on this planet? The work doesn't end. So if we could transform our minds and our bodies to understand that and not be exhausted by the thought, but empowered by the thought. Because then we will then understand how to engage as individuals for the rest of our lives. That means we have to take breaks. I equate it to like singing in a choir. And when you sing in a choir and you have like a long phrase to like hold a note, and the note is supposed to be held for like a minute. It's called staggered breathing. So somebody takes a breath here, but the whole choir is still going. But they take the breath to recharge. Then they come back in. Then another person takes a breath so they can recharge. Then they come back in. Then another person takes a breath. That's what I feel moving forward. Our work must emulate.
Was there anyone when you were younger that you looked at and moved you so deeply?
It was my mother. My mother is my biggest hero. She, on paper, didn't have much. She couldn't even get hired to have a job. Because her disability made her shake. She couldn't even have a job. She wanted to work. She got out of bed every single day of her life and showed up and showed out for her life. She could have been bitter. She never had a bitter bone in her body. She loved everybody unconditionally, no matter who you were, even when she didn't understand it. She didn't understand me for years. And she pulled out her Bible and got in her Bible and studied that thing and found the courage to love her gay child. When people from her community would call her on the telephone and tell her that she was going to hell for loving her gay son, she said, no. That is not what Jesus said to do. Please don't call me anymore. She chose me. She chose us. And as a result, her life, even with her disability, she lived to see her children not only survive, but thrive. She got to see me sit inside of a success that rendered all of the haters' theories inconsequential. They have no credibility. She got to live long enough to see that. She's the only hero I've ever had.
How does it feel when people come up to you and tell you what your story has meant to them?
I don't always know how to receive it. I'm working on that part. Up until recently, I couldn't receive it. As you can see, sort of letting even the idea in really makes me emotional. I will be 55 years old in a couple of weeks. And I can truly say to you that there's never been a time in my life where I have felt safe on this planet, anywhere, at all.
Still true.
To this day. I make a wrong turn on the wrong highway and I could be killed. I want to be a part of the people who create a safe space in this world for everybody. I don't know if I'll ever see that in my lifetime, but it motivates me to get out of bed every morning. And I know that in my experience, the ability that music has to heal. Like, you can listen to one song and all of a sudden you're changed. Like, the power of it, I think it's one of the most powerful forms of art. I really do. There's a song by Edwin Hawkins called This Day. It's a prayer. It's a plea. It's about the spirit. It's about connecting to the spiritual and spreading that.
What are the words that hold so much power?
Let me find a key and I'll sing a little bit of it for this morning. Give us this day our daily bread. You said you would supply all my needs according to your riches. I have but to ask, and I shall be free. You gave to me to show someone who's lost and help them find their way, the way to truth and faith, so they can be free like me.